Hey there, thanks for stopping by to check out my channel. Now, if you're in the precision rifle world, you know one of the most debated topics is rifle accuracy in the chase for sub-MOA. We all want that rifle that shoots no bigger than a ½ inch and never misses a target that we point at. But you gotta ask yourself, how practical, realistic, and affordable is that quest? And is it worth it for you? I might challenge that thinking by saying, you don't need a 1 MOA rifle. Many times on this channel, you've seen me stretch out rifles that shoot over 1 MOA out to distance with very favorable results. Now, I know many of you are going to head down to the comments and light me up for making that comment, how you wouldn't even own a rifle that doesn't shoot less than 1 MOA, and I'd love to hear that opinion and maybe your reasons as to why. But if you stick around in this video, I'm going to put some data behind my claim. And I believe it all comes down to how you're using the rifle and what you're shooting at, as well as what distances. How many times do you find yourself shooting at that MOA plate? You know, are you shooting that 1-inch target at 100 yards? Maybe, I have done that in some matches. But as you get out to distance, how often do you find yourself shooting a 6-inch plate, 600 yards, or an 8-inch plate at 800 yards, or in the video case today, a 10-inch plate at 1,000 yards? In my experience, it's fairly rare and not as common as when you're shooting the more practical type targets. And I define the practical targets as maybe the full-size IPSC torsos, 18x30s, or the reduced size torsos at closer ranges. Those are very practical, especially when you're using these rifles in a DMR type role. And those targets are much larger than MOA, really at any distance where they're placed. And in that case, I do believe a rifle that shoots more or greater than 1 MOA is still very effective. Now, how am I going to put some data behind the claim in this video? Well, as you can see, I have 3 different precision rifles behind me. I'm going to move down to the 100-yard line, shoot each of them on paper to give you a look at how they shoot for 10-round groups. I am a believer in 10-round groups because you think about many of the matches that you're shooting or training classes. You're never shooting just a 3-round string. You're always going to be shooting 10 to 12 round. And those are going to put heat into the system. They're going to open the groups up. So I'm going to shoot 10-round groups, measure them, get an idea of the velocity. Once we understand that, then we're going to push out to 1,000 yards where I have 3 targets set up. A full-size IPSC, a 2/3 IPSC, and a 10-inch plate. So those go from 18x30, 12x20, and then 10-inch circle. That 10-inch circle is 1 MOA. That's a tiny target out there. And then we're going to fire 10 round strings from each rifle on those targets and measure hit percent. There's going to be a lot of ammo fired in this video, and what I plan to do while editing is probably just splice out or cut out the downtime between shots, so it's just bang, bang, bang. I think that'll enhance the viewer experience so that we don't have a massively long video. And at the end of the video, we're going to review the hit percent from each rifle and understand what each rifle with a different accuracy level is capable of and where it might make sense in your arsenal. If you like the sounds of that, stick around. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. So what are we going to run for rifles in the video? Well, we have 3 of them out here, again, each representing different accuracy levels. I have 2 gas guns, the first of which being the Palmetto State Armory Super Sass. So I just got this rifle back in November, launched my initial review video, or initial impressions video there, November, December timeframe. If you haven't seen it, check it out. From what I'm seeing, this rifle is about a 1.7 MOA shooter. So the rifle itself is factory Palmetto State Armory, just as it came from Palmetto State Armory. It does have the Griffin dual lock 7 suppressor on it. So Griffin Armoment's been a long time supporter of the channel. I love their cans, but most importantly, their dual lock mounting system, very secure. And so far I haven't had any issues with these cans getting stuck. So if you find yourself in the market for a solid can or really many different ARs or accessories, check out Griffin Armament. They've been a supporter of my channel. I am a believer in their products. I believe if you find yourself in the market, you'd be pleased with what they have to offer. Topped on this rifle is going to be the Arca EP5 7-35 Gen 2. This is an optic that I got last October, maybe it was earlier than that actually, August, September maybe. Very affordable 7-35 optic. This thing comes in, depending on coupon codes, somewhere between the $600 to $800 range. If you haven't seen my review videos on these, check these out because I think these are awesome optics for the money. If you find yourself in the market for Arca products, make sure you use my code MULLETS to get yourself the best deal possible and provide a little bit of support back to the channel. So that'll be our first gas gun, Palmetto State Armory Super Sass. So we do have 1 bolt gun out here. That'll be my Barrett MRAD. As you can see right here, this is a factory Barrett MRAD. Shout out to Barrett who helped me source the 20-inch MK22 308 barrel last December. So this is an actual MK22 contract barrel. It's 1 in 8 twists, so it's very fast for 308. Both of the gas guns are going to be 1 in 10, so a little bit slower. This one's gonna be finished off with the Barrett Mk22 suppressor. So basically, as this is set up, minus the optic, this will be very similar to the Mk22 contract rifle that you would see the military running. I love this MRAD. Maybe one of these days I'll do a long-term review video of this rifle. I've got a ton of rounds through it right now, but this thing's an absolute shooter. The 308 barrel in particular, I'm probably in it about 200 rounds now, so it is fairly new, but it is quite the performer, as you'll see here on the video. I do expect this to be the tightest shooting rifle out here today. For an optic on this rifle, it's topped with the Element Theos 6-36 optic, mounted in the Griffin Armament single piece mount. So this Element Theos though, I love this optic. I've had this thing probably about a year now. Shout out to Utah Air Guns for sending it out to me. But what I like about this optic, 6-36 power, and a smaller footprint than other competitive models, but the reticle is awesome. The tracking on this turret has been exceptional. I shot this rifle with the Element Theos in the Night Force ELR match back, I think it was in June of last year, and this scope performed flawlessly. Love the reticle. You'll see it perform very well out to distance here. I don't have really anything bad to say about this optic so far. I've got a ton of rounds on it. It's performed very well. Solid enough that I actually asked Utah Air Guns for a second element. And that second element will be the Element Nexus, which is sitting on top of my Knight's Armament SR25 or Mark 11 Mod 1 rifle. You've seen this many times on the channel. So this rifle, again, is going to be 308, just like the others. This one has been rebarreled to a Bartlein 1-in-10 twist barrel. Shout out to Craddock Precision for helping knock out that work for me last year. This one's going to be finished off with a Knight's Armament M110 suppressor. So the upper on this is set up to mimic the M110 that the military is running with a much nicer Bartlein stainless steel barrel in it. The lower will be the SR25 from Knight's Armament with a Geissele SDE flat two-stage trigger. Optic, as I mentioned, is the Element Nexus. It's kind of the little brother to the Theos. This is 4-25. I really like this optic so far because of the smaller footprint. So on this rail, because it's shorter, it leaves me more room to run my clip-on night vision while still offering an awesome zoom range from 4-25. And then all of the things that I like about the Theos are found in the Nexus. Things like the toolless re-zeroing on the turrets and that reticle. Also, the glass quality seems to be very good. This one is a 30mm tube versus the Theos would be a 34. This one's going to be sitting in a zero gravity mount. Shout out to them for sending these out for use on the channel. I've had very good luck with the zero gravities. I really like this design mount in that it only uses one set of screws on the top of the mount to secure it versus one on each side in sandwiching the rings. Makes them very easy to mount and torque. Again, I've had very good luck. And this will be the second of the gas guns that we're running. As you can see, this one is equipped with a MDT single pole sky pod. But I want to give a shout out to a company. They reached out to me on Instagram. They actually make these pod knobs. And as you can see, these are orange because I thought they would show up well on video. But today they're coming in super handy because I'm wearing gloves. And it's very easy to hit those knobs and activate the sky pod. If you're familiar with these, you know the factory knobs are really tiny. And if I had gloves on, probably wouldn't be the easiest to get to there. I'll give a link to the company here. They reached out to me. They're on Instagram. So if you're interested in setting up your sky pod with a set of these pod knobs, again, it's PRS Manufacturing, I believe, on Instagram. So you'll see me using these really from here on out because I really like how these work. But anyway, that'll be the rifles that we're going to run. Ammo that we're going to run will be hand loads. So I'm going to be running the 175 SMK provided by Sierra. Sierra's been a supporter on the channel now for quite a while. And I appreciate them sending out some loaded ammo as well as bullets for me to run. These will be bullets that I dropped into my hand loads that I just ran through my new Dillon Precision 550 progressive press. So Dillon reached out to me and said, hey, we really like what you're doing. We wonder, is there a way that we can work our products into your portfolio? I've never actually used a progressive press, and I was kind of nervous given my focus on precision shooting. So this is going to be my first run of hand loads through that 550. I swapped over to stay-ball match powder, which should flow a little bit nicer through the meter than something like a Varget. But what we're going to be shooting out here all came off of a progressive press running stay-ball match. I really haven't fine-tuned the load for any of these rifles. Basically, all I've done is set the bullet to the same seating depth I always use and selected a powder charge which is running that 175 SMK at the same velocity that I'm used to, right at about 2,600 or just under 2,600 feet per second. So again, all the ammo, all the velocity information that we're going to be running in this video, it all came out of a progressive press. Shout out to Dillon for coming on board to help out with the channel. And if you find yourself interested in Dylan products, check out the link in my campsite bio or link tree over to their website where you can learn more about their products and what they have to offer. You'll be seeing me shoot tons more ammunition that comes off of a progressive press, because I can tell you what, the little bit that I've used it so far, once you get it set up, it is so stinking fast just to pop out those rounds. Once you get your powder charge dialed, it's just how fast you can seat the bullet and work the handle way faster than what I was doing on my old single stage press. So thanks to Dylan for coming on board as a supporter. With that, let's move on down to the 100-yard line and start shooting. So let's start here at the 100-yard line and get a baseline of performance. I want to take a look at group size out of each rifle as well as velocity performance so that we know what to expect as we push each setup out to distance. Now there's a lot going on here. On the bottom paper, these are rounds that I fired off camera to confirm zero, make sure the barrel had a bit of heat in it, and just make sure things were generally working well before I fired the rounds on camera. So first up, I fired 10 rounds out of the Barrett MRAD here on this lower right-hand dot. Now I feel like 10-round groups are a solid indicator of how the rifle is going to perform, especially when you think about maybe a match scenario where you're typically going to be firing 10 to 12 rounds at a time. So the MRAD, 10 rounds right here, zeroed up really well. That thing is an absolute shooter. That group is going to measure 1.1 inch, with the bulk of them landing right here. These two flew a little bit outside of the group, opening it up, but overall, that's a 1 to 1.1 inch group, the best out of any rifle. Velocity performance, with the 175 SMK, we're running an average of 2610, extreme spread of 40, SD of 13.8. So that's decent, and it'll work as we stretch out to distance. Next up, I fired the M110 or the SR25 with the Bartlein barrel here. And as you can see, this 10-round group is very centered up, so zero looks good. And when you measure diagonal across this group, you're right at 1.5 inches. I feel like maybe should have been better, but ultimately that's what we have. So right at 1.5 MOA on a 10-round group, I feel like that's respectable for a gas gun. Velocity performance, 2584 is the average. Extreme spread of 43.4, SD of 12.8. So standard deviation just a bit better, and velocity just a little bit slower, even though that was the exact same load. But ultimately, that's going to be about a 1.5 MOA rifle with this load. Next up, we fired the PSA Super Sass, again a 10-round group, here on this upper right-hand dot. Now you can see that group was up and right just a bit, so I have corrected my zero. But overall, again, diagonal, that group's going to measure 1.8 inches, or just under 2 MOA, a bit larger than the Knight's SR25, but still I think respectable for what we're going to be doing out here in this accuracy comparison. So 1.8 inches, 1.8 MOA-ish. Average speed, 2591, so you're right there on top of the other gas gun. Extreme spread of 25.3, SD of 7.5, so a little better velocity performance and that lot of ammo. But ultimately, all three loads are going to be performing very similar from a velocity perspective. Next up, I forgot to hit record, but I did fire 5 rounds of Federal Gold Medal match right here out of the MRAD. And those 5 rounds, I just wanted a frame of reference versus what my hand loads are doing. These 5 rounds are about 0.7 inches, average speed of 26.24, extreme spread of 32, SD of 11.5. So velocity is a little bit higher. SD is in line with what I'm seeing out of the hand loads. Now this is just a 5-round group, but that's a 0.7 inch group. That's the tightest group of all. I will say, when I fired each of these 10-round strings, there is quite a bit of heat coming off of the suppressor that I didn't have here. So maybe the mirage that I was seeing led to some of this opening up, but ultimately that was the tightest group out of the MRAD. Now with that, you've got to let me know in the comments down below, what are you expecting when I stretch each of these rifles out to distance on our 3 different targets? How do you feel hit percent is going to look? Do you feel like the different accuracy capabilities are going to have a significant impact on my ability to make impacts? Let me know. I'd love to hear it from you before I stretch out. Now with that, let's move out to about 1,000 yards and put each of these rifles on steel and see what our hit percent looks like. Let's move back and put some rounds on steel. Now I'm at 1,001 yards and I've got 3 targets out there from right to left. I have a full-size Zipsic, a 2/3 Zipsic, and a 10-inch circle. A little 1 MOA at 1,000-yard challenge. If you're familiar with Texas Plinking, you know that's something he's doing monthly. It's kind of where I got my start and a lot of exposure to y'all. So we got a 1 MOA target down there all the way up to a full-size Zipsic. Now my plan will be to fire 10 rounds at each plate so that we can get an idea of hit percent with each rifle on each plate. Now you're going to have to do your best to help me count impacts there in the comments. I don't know if I can keep track of it all in my head here. but worst case, I will summarize at the end of the video with maybe an Excel chart showing hit percent with each rifle. Now, at 1,001 yards, this rifle is calling for 10.7 mils, which I'll dial on. And we have a bit of a right to left. According to the calculator, that should be about 2 to 2.5 mils to the right of windage. So we'll start right 2.5 mils, and I'm going to start on the full-size diptych. Let's see where we land. Here we go. Let's go 2. All right, so actually it's more like, call it 1. Impact. 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 Let's come down a tenth. Impact. Calling wind to like 1.2, 1.3. Okay, so that was 90%. And load up 10 more. Here we go on the 2/3 dipstick. Wind seems pretty consistent, huh? Man, 10-round strings are a lot. And that one flew. So we're 90% on the torso, 2/3. Now here's the proof that's in the pudding. 10-inch circle at 1,000 yards. Let's go ahead and see where we land. I'm gonna hold that same 1.2 mils right. Low left. Let's come back up a tenth. Right over it. That velocity was kind of quick. Pat. Pat. Low left. Pat. 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 And that's it. So there you have it. 30 rounds at 1,000 yards with a rifle that's about a 1 MOA shooter. We're 90% on the 2/3, 90% on the full size, and I think 50 to 60% on the 1 MOA 10-inch plate up there. Now, let's try the gas guns. Next up, let's run the SR25 with the Bartlein barrel. Remember there at the 100-yard line, this was shooting about 1.5 inches or 1.5 MOA. Here we are at the 1,000-yard line. Remember, this rifle is running a little bit slower than the MRAD was, so it's calling for a little bit more elevation. I'm going to dial on 11.1 into the element nexus. And with that, we'll hold kind of the same wind. The MRAD, it seemed like we were kind of having some luck in the 1.2 range. And we'll just repeat the course of fire. We'll start on that full-size IPSC. Pack, first round. Off the left. Pack. Off the left. Left. Okay, wind must be picking up, huh? Drop low. Pack. So I believe that was 6 impacts. The wind was pretty stout. Here we go on the 2/3 Zipstick. Okay, so just off the right. 1.4. Pack. That one flew high. Pretty high velocity on that one too. Pack. So pretty good run there on the 2/3 Zipstick. I think that was 5 or 6 again. A little bit of winded trouble. Here we go on the 10-inch plate. Let's go 1.6. Like a 1.4. Pack. Gosh, those are close. Pack. That one dropped low. Pack. Dropped low. So that was 3 impacts. So as you can see, our hit percent's a little bit lower. Next up, let's try the Palmetto, see where it lands. Here we go with the Palmetto State Super Sass. Remember on paper, this shot about a 1.8-inch group. Now we're at the 1,000-yard line. We'll repeat the course of fire. So we'll go ahead and dial it the same as the SR25, which was like 11.1 or 2. We'll start with 11.1, see where that gets us. That sun is right in my left eye. Okay, that landed low left. Over there about 1.5. Come up 2. Go back down to 2. The velocities are the same. Back. That upper shoulder. Back. Back. Come down 1/10. Those are on the high edge of the plate. Impact. I believe that was 7 impacts. 25.75. So that's the exact same average that the SR25 was getting. So a little bit slower than the 100-yard line. There we go on the 2/3 dipstick. Ooh. Low. Good and stable here. That. Just over it. That. Man, that sun is blinding. Drop low. Drop low. Impact. I believe that was 3 impacts on the 2/3 plate. Now we'll try the 10-inch. I tell you what, that sun is coming in right there from like the 10 o'clock. It's absolutely blinding in my left eye, so I figured a way to block it. Okay, here we go on the 10-inch circle. Slow left. It's 1.5. Split the difference. Pat. Low right. Just low left. Just under it. So we had 1 good impact on the 10-inch plate, possibly 2, might have skipped the edge there. We'll take a close-up look. Now let's wrap up and talk about the performance of each rifle. Well, there you have it. A look at 3 different rifles, their accuracy level, and hit percent out at distance. Now let's go ahead and wrap up with a summary of my experience running the 3 rifles out to distance. While I'm doing that, you gotta let me know in the comments down below, what did you think about the performance of the different rifles and the results that I experienced? Also, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are around accuracy expectations from your precision rifles. So first up, we moved down to the 100-yard line where we fired each rifle 10-round groups, took a measurement, as well as velocity. Now what we saw is the MRAD was the winner there with the tightest group, right at 1.1 inches. Again, there's a ton of mirage, so maybe I could have done better, but it was 10 rounds, 1.1 inch with an average speed of 2610 and an SD in the low teens. Solid performance, and we saw that shoot well out at 1,000 yards. The next best group came out of the SR25 with the Bartlein barrel at 1.5 inches for 10 rounds. Again, I'd like to see a little bit better. Maybe if I tweak the loads, I could perform better with each rifle, but 1.5 MOA, to me, is very acceptable for a gas gun in a practical role like this. Average speed was like 2584, SD in the low teens. And then the last group there was the Palmetto State Armory, 10 rounds. It was kind of diagonal at 1.8 inches and a speed of 2590. That actually had the best SD and ES. I want to say the SD was actually under 10 there, so pretty solid. Then we moved out on steel at 1,000 yards. Now this is where it got super fun. So first up, I shot the MRAD. On the full-size IPSC, we had 1 miss there for windage and then connected 9 times. 2/3 IPSC, we were 90%, 9 for 10. And then on the 10-inch plate, man, we were 6 for 10. Really great accuracy out of this MRAD. That thing, that 1 MOA rifle really shined on all 3 of the plates, really had no problems connecting. Next up, we fired the SR25 on the full-size torso. I had 7 impacts on the plate, 6 on the 2/3 IPSC, and 3 on the 10-inch plate. So we were able to connect on all 3 of the plates. And then finally, the Palmetto State Armory rifle. I believe I had 6 impacts, if I'm remembering correctly, on the full-size IPSC, 3 on the 2/3, and 1 on the 10-inch plate. So again, connected on all of the plates. But as you can see, as accuracy or group size grows, hit percent out at distance decreases. And that's to be expected. I expected that coming in. But remember in the beginning of the video, I said you don't need a 1 MOA rifle. Well, you think about the targets that we shot out here. If you find yourself frequently shooting a 10-inch plate or a 1 MOA target at 1,000 yards, yeah, you probably should get a rifle that is consistently 1 MOA, or else you're going to be disappointed. Even a 1 MOA capable rifle was still 60% on that target. At distance, you think about it, there's a lot more to it than just pulling the trigger. At 100 yards, pulling the trigger, there's really no worry about windage or standard deviation, extreme spread in your ammo. It's just pure accuracy there. But when you stretch out to distance, you have windage, you have mirage, you have standard deviation or velocity discrepancies in your ammunition that all come into play and make it much more difficult to hit that 1 MOA target out that distance than it is at the 100-yard line. So if you find yourself frequently wanting to shoot 1 MOA targets, then yeah, you better get a rifle capable of MOA or better. If you find yourself more like me trying to engage practical type targets, again, torsos or larger targets in DMR type matches, that's where you can get away with a rifle that shoots a little bit bigger than MOA. You think about what this Knight's SR25 did out there, 70% on the full-size Zipsix, 60% on the 2/3, and even 3 rounds on a 10-inch plate. You know, it's going to be very effective with a package that's 1.5 MOA on those bigger targets. And as you can see, it's even capable of hitting a 1 MOA target if you have the rounds to send at it. And then finally, the Palmetto State Armory. This thing's a budget rifle. You know, you think about the barrel in this Knight's. The barrel alone was $1,100 versus this full rifle was $2,000 with mags and carrying case, so much more costly rifle. But as you can see out there, that rifle, on paper, shot 1.8 inches or 1.8 MOA, almost 2 MOA. Many of you would say that's not that great of accuracy, and I tell you what, I'm actually hoping to clean that up with some hand load fine tuning. Really, that's the case for all rifles now that I'm running the Dillon press with the AMP annealer. I have to rework pretty much all of my loads. But what we saw here today, 1.8 MOA accuracy, was greater than 50% hit rate on a full-size Zipsix. So I'm betting many of you are probably buying a rifle like that for defense or maybe matches, DMR rolls, etc., where you're shooting bigger targets. You likely won't find yourself frequently engaging 1 MOA targets. And in my opinion, the Palmetto State Armory, the 1.8-inch MOA accuracy, did well and filled that role very well. You think about it, maybe you shoot those same targets at closer distances, man, that thing would hammer. That thing would have no problems connecting. So I'll leave the video with this. Ask yourself, what are you trying to do with your rifle? Are you frequently shooting tiny targets? And if so, yeah, you probably need the tiny MOA capable or smaller rifle. But if you're after more practical targets like me, greater than 1 MOA, less than 2 MOA will get the job done. So let me know in the comments down below what you thought about this video. I had a ton of fun making it. I actually learned a lot about my rifles, and I can't wait to put out more content like this. If you've made it this far, I gotta ask your help to grow this channel. Like the video, comment down below and let me know what you thought. Most impactful is subscribe. I'm on a mission to get to 100,000, and I need each of you that are watching this video that is not subscribed to go ahead and hit that subscribe button and make sure you're in line for my next video drop. And also, if you're new to the channel, check out the other videos that I have. I've got a ton of precision rifle content out there, and I appreciate you sticking around to watch this video, and I hope you'll stick in line for the next one.